and welcome back to Meet the Authors. Our second segment today, I'm very pleased to present Tom Simmons. Welcome, Tom. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Philip. It's
Good
a
to see you.
pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you. You're a very well-established and prolific author, 8 books out, and you're working on a trilogy now, fiction. It's just amazing. How did you get interested in writing?
I think back in college and taking a course in writing at the University of Alabama, and I think writers write because they have to. They're driven to do it. And you have to put it off to make a living. And but finally I had time and just sit down and start writing. And I love to do it. And right now I'm between books and I feel loose.
I always have something to write. I'm working my fiction, writing magazine articles, poetry, all things like that. And you have a big selection too. You have your nonfiction and your fiction. Which book do you like to talk about?
Well, I'm going to talk about the trilogy, but I'd like to just briefly show these if I could. Forgotten Heroes of World War II is a very popular book, and it's available all over, but in England, and then in the Frankfurt Book Fair, it was picked up by a Polish publisher, and it's been published in Poland, and the only word I can read is my name.
What's it about? What's the book about?
Forgotten Heroes are individual stories. We grew up around heroes in World War II. I was a child, and we didn't realize it. And when I began to understand, I went to some of these men, 13 or 14 of them, and they wouldn't talk. They're not going to talk about it, but I was persistent, and you have to do a lot of research behind someone's story to authenticate it and be sure that their memory was sharp. And these guys, they could remember how tall the grass was in the places where they fought. Air, sea, and land in both Europe and the Pacific. Wow. And their families came to me later and said, we would have never known had you not. They're horrendous stories. Yeah. They're the real thing.
That's amazing. It's a wonderful bit of history that otherwise been completely
And this
lost.
book, by the way, won a gold medal.
Which gold medal?
The gold medal from the Writers Society, the Military Writers Society of America, and I was stunned. And then they gave, that was for history, and the same organization presented a gold medal for this book, The Man Called Brown Condor, for biography.
That's a very popular book locally because of the story of Brown Condor.
It's about a black child that grew up in Gulfport in the 10s and 20s with a desire to fly. He saw a plane, and he wanted to do it, just like I wanted to do it. I've been flying for 63 years and I'm still qualified, but he was good at it when he finally got a chance, and he wound up the commander of the Ethiopian Air Corps against Mussolini's fascist invasion of Ethiopia, which was probably the first American to fight fascism in 1935.
Yes, an amazing story. I've read that one. That is
this little one, very quickly. Escape from Archangel is probably the most unique story to come out of the Merchant Marine in World War II, and people don't know a lot about the Merchant Marine. They were the volunteers that manned the ships that carried everything from toilet paper to aircraft and ammunition to both the European theater and the Pacific theater.
Amazing.
And they suffered the same ratio of killed as the United States Marines.
Wow. That's a heavy thing. Tell us about your fiction.
Yes, the fiction begins the trilogy with By Accident of Birth. It continues with The Last Queen Standing. This book goes from the Civil War to World War I.
And it's a particular family. You said you're following a particular
family. It's the
family
Quinn family, the Shamrock Plantation out of Vicksburg. Mm-hmm. And this book is one of the sons. This is World War I, and the one I've just finished and is going to the publisher is Yesterday a War, Tomorrow a War, and a Family in Between. People don't realize that the end of World War I and the beginning of World War II was just 20 years, 20 short years. Mm-hmm. So this trilogy is the one family, the Quinn family, from the plantation in Vicksburg that continues. The first book is 50 years in the life of Bethany Quinn.
We have about a minute left. See if you can read a little paragraph
Sure.
or two for us.
This goes all the way through the Spanish-American War, but let me get on my spectacles. And this is chapter 1, the beginning, in Vicksburg. The harder life got inside the ring of fire, the more tenaciously the besieged attempted to preserve some semblance of civilized society. Although the bombardment proceeded uninterrupted day and night, week after week, the shelling was lifted randomly from one section of the town to another. When the barrage lifted from a neighborhood, its citizens, grown accustomed to hell, defiantly ventured out of their basements, damaged houses, and hastily dug caves to socialize as if nothing taking place around them was out of the ordinary. Random shells crossing high overhead occasioned little comment. Women were seen walking down ruined streets holding parasols to protect their skin from the sun, ignoring the odds against a stray shell finding them. Witnessing such activity, a rational observer could argue that the sane had become insane. Animals.
That's all we have time for.
Oh, okay, all right.
But that was great. With a very exciting book. Tom, we're so glad you could join us. Thanks for coming
It's a pleasure. It's a real pleasure. I would like to mention the fact that my agent is Loacano. My agent has been great help. You need an agent. And also that my books are available on Amazon, or any bookstore can get them. And you could go to my website at www.thomasesimmons.net and see them all.
That's great. We're so glad to have you here, and we're looking forward to presenting your books through my website and get them directly from Amazon. So our next guest is going to be Gene Jackman. Gene Jackson is a playwright out of Mobile. He's written a lot of plays, but they've been performed at different community colleges and high schools, and we're looking forward to hearing his story. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.